Good evening, everybody. I'm Radhika Gupta, CEO of Edelweiss Asset Management, and very excited to welcome you to this Friday's edition of Edelweiss Connect. I think Connect, as it completes a year, has traveled many spaces and places. We visited spirituality with Gaur Gopal Das. We visited chess with Vishwanathan Anand. We, of course, keep visiting investments with Monish Pograi and Utpal Sheth. I think today we visit a theme that everyone talks about, that everyone's interested, and that is driving everyone's life, and that is technology. It's also a theme that a lot of you are asking us questions about, given our technology fund. So I'm very excited to have this conversation today. Our speaker today actually does not need an introduction, but I'll still do the honors. We are very happy to have Sanjeev Bikhchandani, founder of InfoEdge India. And InfoEdge India, as many of you know, is the name that taught us many things on the internet. It taught us Naukri to search for jobs. It taught us about finding a life partner through Jeevan Sathi. They own shiksha.com, 99acres.com. And Sanjeev is also invested in promising internet startups like Zomato, Policy Bazaar, and many others. He has a very interesting background himself. He's a Delhi guy who started with his career in advertising. He tells me he and Rashesh actually went to IIM Ahmedabad together.
And Vidya.
Yeah, okay, there you go. And he also quit his job after about 18 months to venture into entrepreneurship. He did a bunch of stuff in his early entrepreneurial stint, from salary surveys to databases to training, and then he formed InfoEdge, started Naukri, and transformed himself into one of India's first internet companies. I think even before this conversation started, we were having a lot of conversations about the state of technology businesses today. So there's a lot ahead of us. And today, InfoEdge employs over 4,000 people. It's got a market cap of $4 billion. Sanjeev has many accolades to his name, but the recent one is that he has been announced the recipient of the Padma Shri. It will be conferred, of course, this is a COVID year, but congratulations on that, Sanjeev. And I'm also very happy because, like a true tech entrepreneur, if you look at the painting behind my background, which is very humble, he told me that its valuation could be like that of a Hussein. So he's already added value.
Let me clarify. I said over Zoom at a distance. It might be.
Okay, I skipped the disclaimer. I'm a marketing girl. But thank you so much, Sanjeev. We are so excited.
Thank you so much for calling me.
So, Sanjeev, there's a lot I want to ask you, but the first thing I want to ask you is that, this is an internet boom. It's probably a great time to be an internet entrepreneur. It probably wasn't like that when you started. You were sort of among the first batch of Indian internet entrepreneurs. And for you, where did the idea come from 30 years back? I think not many people know that the business started with 2,000 rupees of capital. So how did you start and where did that seed come from?
So I quit my job, my last corporate job in 1990. I was a year and a half out of IIM Ahmedabad. I had worked for 3 years before I went to IIM Ahmedabad. So advertising and then consumer marketing. So roughly 5 years of experience, and I quit my job. And I quit it because I figured I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I did not have a big idea. I had a couple of small ideas. We had no money. We started with 2,000 rupees. And we started life in a servant quarter above the garage of my father's house in Delhi. And we were, and we began with doing salary surveys. We did a trademarks database. But because we had no money, to start, we had no capital. We ensured that the first few products were fruits of our labor, our time, personal time, no employees. And we would always take money in advance from our clients, from our customers. So we were running on customer money, right? We had no money to invest of our own. And from there, we sort of, we did this. But the idea of Naukri, so I became an entrepreneur in 1990 and we launched Naukri in 97. For the first 7 years, I was drifting and doing a whole bunch of small things. Teaching, training, salary surveys, trademark database, other databases, some small-time consulting, some basically whatever came my way to survive. Right? And there were years when I couldn't take salary. I could take salary only intermittently. The company couldn't afford to pay me, and so I did a bunch of small things. And then in '97 we launched Naukri as the 21st small thing, right? Because when we launched Naukri, there were only 14,000 internet accounts in the country. But the idea of Naukri, so what I like to believe is that successful businesses are built on deep customer insights, right? And if you can take one thing out of this conversation, one of them could be this, right? Successful businesses are built on deep customer insights. When I was in my last job in a company called HMM, which is after various mergers and acquisitions, is now called GlaxoSmithKline Consumer. And I was in marketing in the head office of the company in Delhi. I was working on the brand Horlicks, right? And there would be 7, 8, 10 of us, in the junior marketing team, and we would sit in an open hall. So I could observe everybody, and I could hear what they were saying on the phone or to each other, right? And I observed that when the office copy of Business India would come in, everybody would read it from the back, because in those days there were 35 to 40 pages of appointment ads at the back of Business India. It was a number one appointment ad medium for professional managers, right? And I found it strange behavior. I said, these people are happy in their jobs. They're working for an MNC. They're handling good brands. They're being paid well. They aren't. This is 89, right? This is pre-liberalization. And I said, there aren't so many. So if you wanted FMCG, you wanted MNC, you wanted marketing, not sales, which means head office, and you wanted Delhi, then there were just two companies, HMM and Nestle, and they would not hire for each other. So you were already in the best job you could be in, right? And yet people would look at the jobs first. They would not read the articles. They would look at the jobs. And having looked at the jobs, they would comment, oh, there's a job going here. What do you think? And the whole discussion would start, right? And I found this to be very, very strange behavior. And I concluded that, jobs are a high interest category of information. Even if you're not looking for a job, you will look at a job. Because you're constantly benchmarking, how well am I doing? Am I okay? What are my batch mates? I think this business of, competing with your business school batch, benchmarking continues for the first 8, 10 years of life after business school. After that, you grow out of it, right? And that's what was happening. And I didn't know what to do with this insight. Okay. But when I saw the internet for the first time in 1996, October, I said, let's just take jobs from newspapers and magazines around the country and put them on the net and see what happens. Okay, because if that insight is correct, which I had 7 years ago or 6 years ago, before that, then if you put all the jobs in one place, you should get traffic without advertising. It should be a traffic magnet because people are interested in jobs, right? And so we got 29 newspapers from around the country and magazines, whichever carried job ads, right? And we got them into office every week. And we began to rehash the jobs in our own words, in our own formats, and put it in a database and put it on the net. And we called it Naukri. Okay, and sure enough, it was a traffic magnet. We hit a hot button, right? And traffic began to come. And gradually, people began to know about us. They would talk about us. We got covered in the press. And the HR community, the recruitment community, got to know about us because people would apply for those jobs. And in the covering letters, they would say, I saw your ad on Naukri. So our brand was getting built slowly without us spending money on advertising. And 6 months after we launched, I got a call. It was a tiny office, telephone lines. There was an 80 or waiting list to get a phone line. So there were two phone lines. They were both on my desk. And, so I would pick up all the phones. and the phone rang. Must have been about 6 o'clock in the evening. And on the other side was this voice, which introduced itself as the CEO of a small auto component company in Pune. I forget the name, right? And I wish I could remember the name of that company. And he said, listen, I have advertised in the past in the newspaper, and you picked up my jobs and put them on your website, and I got good applications. I've got 6 jobs I have not advertised. If I send them to you, will you list them on your site? Okay. And I was thinking on my feet, and within a split second, I answered, yes, sir, but you will have to pay us some money. So he said, how much? And, I'm racking my brains now, and I'm going to give an answer in 1.5 seconds. I just blurted out 350 rupees a job. He said, sure thing. I'm going to send you a draft of 2,100 rupees. Just let me know the name. So I gave him the name of the company, InfoEdge India Private Limited. And this is the address. And the address is the homepage of the website also. Just send us a check or the draft along with the jobs. Within 2 days, a courier came, and the jobs were there, and the draft was there. And, as they say in Hindi, boni ho gayi. We got our first payment. And I said, okay, we've got a revenue model, right? And 350 rupees per job listing stayed the price of a single job listing for the next 10 years. It just came out of my mouth.
Came out of your head, yeah.
There's so much for pricing strategy, right? And all this MBA education, right? And what we did then was we collated the addresses of all recruitment advertisers from the previous 6 months. We had launched in April 97, and this is now September. For the previous 6 months, whatever jobs we put on, we just took in those days, there was no email, right? I'm very few people had emails. So they would give the full address and the title of the HR manager or the recruitment manager. And so we built this mailing list of about 3,000, recruitment managers around the country, taking us the last 6 months of jobs that we put on. And we send them all a letter saying, look, this is InfoEdge, this is the internet, this is Naukri, this is what you're doing, this is the format. Send us your jobs, 350 rupees a single listing. And we added on a 6,000 rupees annual subscription, unlimited jobs for 1 year for your company, right? And we began to get some revenue. And in the next 6 months, we did about 2.5 lakhs. Now, 2.5 lakhs looks like peanuts today. But look, in 97, 98, it was not bad.
Yeah.
It was a start, right? But the next year, this number went to 18 lakhs. Now, I had never, ever seen anything grow by 7x in 1 year, even of a small base in my life. And I said, you know what? We may have stumbled upon a big idea after all. So we decided around middle of 98, when we were, looks like we were doing all right, right? And we decided that, listen, stop doing everything else. No more teaching, no more training, no salary surveys, no nothing. We are now an internet company. And part of it was a compulsion because we had no resources. We had a small office, we had 9 employees, right? And the work in Naukri was growing because of so many jobs coming in from that we had to devote all resources there. So we just had to stop everything else and just put everything here and say, this looks like it, because Naukri was demanding this kind of effort, right? So once again, it was not a strategy. It was, the market did this to us. And we became an internet company. So that's how Naukri, that's where the idea came from. That's how Naukri was started.
And I think the sort of interesting insight there you said is, when you solve a problem, and today in my industry, which is finance, I think a lot of businesses are looking to acquire users, and then there's question of revenue model and all this stuff. I think what you're saying is if you solve a consumer problem, the users will come, the economics will come, the revenue model will come, it will all fit in. You don't have to go search for users and then figure out how to monetize them, and all that is not necessary if you're fundamentally solving a consumer problem. So
that is correct. However, look, we were really early.
Yeah.
There was no competition. Now, the challenge today is that even if you hit a hot button today, you will get copied within 3 months.
Yeah.
And some of the other guys will raise money because there's so much money going around. And then they'll, either kill you on price subsidy or through advertising and marketing. And so it's harder today. We plowed a lonely furrow for 3 years before our first competitor emerged.
That was
we had that time, right? So actually, when I was launching, when we were launching Naukri, prior to launch, maybe 2-3 months, I went to the idea to 3 or 4 or 5 friends in different sort of things, and one of them was a recruitment firm. He was a senior from IMM, running a recruitment firm. And I said, "What do you think of the idea?" He said, "I know what you're talking about, man. Okay, and let me tell you, it's bound to fail because who the hell is going to apply for a job online, and who's going to give you a job to put online?" And I was saying, you know what? I think there's something here. So it was really early. So when you're really early, you get time. You get time to learn. You get time before competition emerges. You get time to figure things out at a low cost. Right? Today, where everybody wants to do a startup, where and typically a tech startup, even if you spot a vacant niche, it won't be long before you're copied. So, to be fair to people who are starting now and who are spending money, the environment has changed also.
No, I agree with you. Now, the second, and you mentioned funding, so I have to come to this question. I saw one of your talks at Inc., and you used this line that, great companies require the effort of a lifetime. And whether you're in the US or whether you're in India, or whether you're in financial services or whether you're in tech. My first question to you is that, in an age when people talk about internet businesses and flipping them in 2 years and valuations, et cetera, one, what do you think a great company needs to do to be truly great? And 2, why didn't you sell?
So I'll tackle the second one first. Right? I didn't sell because I was convinced that this isn't about one person getting rich. This is about building an institution that hopefully will last a long, long time, which hopefully will, outlive me, the founders, right? So if you look at great companies last 100 years, 150 years. The longest lasting company was the East India Company, 250 years, right? Of course, helped by a government monopoly, right? But, so if you've got your ambitions to build a great institution, great company, then you don't want to sell. You want to keep building. And then you want to then get other builders who will keep building, right? And the company will hopefully continuously evolve. It will learn, it will innovate, it will keep on innovating. And, where the company might be 20 years from now may not be anywhere close to where it is today. We don't know. We can't tell the future, right? But as long as the organization is learning, as long as it's got good leaders and it's innovating, right? And it's staying relevant and it's staying close to the customer, it should be all right. Okay, so one is I didn't sell because that's not my ambition.
Yeah.
See, the other thing is I now look back on it, and I'm now going to be 58 this year. Okay, I now look back on it, and I see what companies like Asian Paints, HDFC Bank, a few others have done, Berger Paints, right? This an Infosys, TCS, right? An HCL. This whole business of just keeping at it for decades and compounding continuously, right? There is massive merit in that, right? And so, if you ask me what kind of company I would like Infosys to be, or we would like Infosys to be, I mean, if you can build a continuous compounder, right, it will be a great achievement. If you can build an institution that outlives us and still keeps on growing, it will be a great achievement.
And what do you think? And I think there's a beautiful lesson again for money management, because I think we talk about continuous compounding in money management. I mean, I know you've cited the Warren Buffett example that, of the top 10 richest guys in the world, the one that happens to be an investment professional is not selling companies, is actually just buying and holding them. So I think there's something to take. What do you think of this in the context of today's internet environment when funding is so out there? People are flipping companies in 2 years.
Actually, flipping is not that frequent, at least not at a profit. It happens, but it's not in India. It's not as frequent as we think it is compared to the number of people who try.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you a little story. In my first job after college, I was in advertising in Lintes. For 2 of those 3 years, I was based in Bombay. Office Nariman Point, that was downtown then. There was no BKC. And living in Bandra, sharing a flat with 3 other people, right? Bandra was a suburb then, right now center of town, right? We used to work late, then go out for dinner, to a local restaurant where we could eat a meal at 15 or 20 rupees per head, right? On one of those, I think it was 16th Road car or towards car, right? And I remember getting into conversations with the waiters there, right? Young guys, several of them quite good looking, okay? And I got talking, and this guy says, "Sir, I'm actually in Bombay to become an actor in the film industry, in Bollywood. मैं waiter का काम करता हूँ to earn some money to live. In the day I struggle. I try and get a job role as an extra, and say, sir, सब लोग यहाँ पे ये कर रहे हैं." And I was thinking to myself that there must be thousands of young men like this in Bombay, coming from all over India with Bollywood dreams. One becomes Amitabh Bachchan, one becomes a Vinod Khanna, one becomes a Rajesh Khanna, one becomes whatever.
Yeah.
In 2030, right? If you remove all the film stars who are from film star families, the guys who make it from scratch, it's even fewer. Okay. And those guys have never talked about. Only the guys who make it are talked about.
True.
Startups are like that. Thousands try. The truth is, Radhika, you called me for a session.
Yeah.
Not the youngsters who are trying, and some of them might not make it, at least not initially. So there's a huge survivorship bias. And all media coverage, all people who are called on stage to give speeches are the people who got lucky, and did all right. And मैं एक और चीज बोलूँगा, although you don't ask me this question. Why is a great company the effort of somebody's lifetime? Why is it that very, very few entrepreneurs have built 2 great companies in their lives?
Yeah.
It's because, as entrepreneurs, we think we are smart. We think we are geniuses, right? But the fact of the matter is we are also lucky, right? And nobody gets lucky twice, or this lucky twice. 2 people I can think of are Steve Jobs, Pixar and Apple, and Elon Musk. I can't think of a third. So be grateful if you are successful, be grateful that you got lucky.
Nitin Kamath said this a few days ago at a panel. He's like, if you succeed, it's passion. If you fail, it's foolishness. And the guy ultimately at the end, whether he succeeded or failed, is probably the same guy. So it's true. And since you mentioned a lot of people want to do startups, Sanjeev, I think, probably in the 90s when people graduated, you wanted to go join ANZ Grill Days or Citibank if you came out of IIT. Today, everyone wants to go do the startup. And as you said, it's a flush funding environment. I mean, interest rates are zero. The Fed is pumping money, public markets, private markets. There's lots of money out there. If you had to give advice to entrepreneurs today who are looking to start up, and to the young guy looking to start up, what would you tell him? And you're an investor in businesses.
Yeah, so I'll tell you. मैं एक और कहानी सुनाता हूँ, right? So Deepinder Goyal, Zomato. I didn't know him.
Yeah.
I'd never met him. I'd never heard of him. I, however, was using a website called Foodie. Zomato used to be called Foodie earlier. So I'm a bit of a foodie. My son's a bit of a foodie. We would go to Foodie on every Thursday, Friday. And now the difference between Foodie and every other restaurant site was what? Foodie had all the menu cards. The only site with all the menu cards. And I used to, study the menu cards, and we could figure out, this restaurant, this dish, that price. Right? So you could plan your lunch or dinner over the weekend by looking at menu cards. And I didn't know this, but Hitesh Oberoi, who's the CEO of Naukri, my partner, MD of Naukri, we've been working together now for 21 years, right? He was independently doing the same thing. One day he mentioned to me, have you seen the site Foodie? I said, yeah. He says, I'm using. I said, so do I use it? He said, boss, you're looking at investing in websites. Why don't you look at Foodie? And I said, hey, how silly of me. I've been using it for 6 months. I didn't even think of it. So I went to Network Solutions and did a Whois search for the domain name Foodie. I found admin contact Deepinder Goyal. I went to Google, right? And I searched for Deepinder Goyal. I found an email ID somewhere. And I sent a cold email saying, dear Deepinder, are you the same person behind Foodie? If so, great work. Yeah. My name is such and such. This is my mobile number. Can you please call me? So for 2 days, there was no news. So Deepinder thought I was a Naukri salesperson trying to sell him a Naukri sales subscription. Then he did a Google search my name and he found who I was and he called up. And I said, Deepinder, great work. Are you looking for money? He says, yes, we are in conversation with a couple of VCs and we have a soft offer. No written term sheet, but a verbal offer. So I said, can we meet? He came to my office. And I asked him a simple question. Ye idea kahan se aaya? Right? And he said he used to work in Bain Consulting in Gurgaon. And there were maybe 50 or 60 people in the office, mostly young, mostly male, mostly single, many of them not from Delhi NCR, therefore living away from home. So what all this means is that they would not get food from home. Office hours were long. You would invariably eat 2 meals in the office, lunch and dinner. Consulting, you work hard, you work long hours. Office had a cafeteria that would not serve food. However, to make life easy for employees, the admin team had collected the delivery menu cards of some 70 or 80 restaurants that would deliver to that location and put them in file folders in the cafeteria. Now, Deepinder said, you can't take this file to your desk. It's a shared resource. So at 1 o'clock, long lines to access the file. And you take 20 minutes, half an hour access the file. You get it for 2 minutes. You decide, you call up and lunch comes after half an hour. It's an hour-long process to get lunch. So he says, it was a pain. And I know I got deadlines to meet. I got work to do.
Yeah.
And I'm hungry. I want food now. So he says, once Saturday I came in and I scanned all these menu cards and uploaded them on my personal page on the office intranet. He says, 3 days later, the IT infra guy came to me and said, man, what have you done? How come 98% of internal traffic is going to your page? Just a penny dropped. I figured that aggregation of menu cards has got value.
Like jobs.
Exactly. The way I had learned 17 years earlier or 10 years earlier that aggregation of jobs has got value, Deepinder discovered that aggregation of menu cards has got value. And customer insight. Right? And he began to go on weekends picking up menu cards all over Delhi, NCR. When he had 800, he launched Foodie. And traffic began to come just like it had come from Naukri 10 years earlier. Right? Once again, customer insight. No money, guy was broke, but traffic is coming. Didn't need to advertise. Now, so the advice I give to youngsters is focus on the customer, observe the customer. Maybe you're a customer yourself have been. Find an unsolved problem and solve it. Find that niche. Now, what is a niche today could become a giant company tomorrow. Naukri was a niche company. It's become mainstream now because the internet has gone mainstream. Zomato was a niche company. 800 restaurants, Delhi NCR. Menu cards. Right? So focus on the customer is the advice I give youngsters, and get that insight into an unsolved problem.
Find an unsolved problem. The rest will figure itself out.
Yeah, if you solve an unsolved problem, basically you won't have to sell, the customer will buy. And if you're in a position where the customer is buying without you having to sell, that's half the problem solved. That's, you're halfway to success.
And what are you doing? Sanjeev, 96 was a very different time to run an internet company.
97. 96, I got the idea when I saw the next first time. We launched in 97.
Yeah, so those are very different times to run an internet company. I think today, with the rising number of Indian internet users, what are the spaces and niches, and I know you're not a soothsayer of the future, that you think are ripe for disruption? I mean, where do you think internet companies and tech companies, what are the spaces they'll disrupt? I mean, so you talked about Naukri at your time, you shared Dipinder's example of Zomato. What do you think are the spaces where that Kida will come?
So, look, you've already given the answer. I don't know, right? But having said that, what are the methods that you can use to figure out where the opportunities are? The first thing is know the customer. So we invested behind this company called Shopkirana, which is now renamed as Business. Right now, 3 founders. Right. One of them is from a family in Agra who's in the footwear industry and trade. So he knows, there's slight domain expertise. He has understood. He has some insight there. And he said, listen, there are tens of thousands of retail outlets for footwear all over the country. Many of them in small towns. Right? Many of them are underserviced. The footwear industry is fragmented, highly fragmented. There are hundreds, maybe a couple of thousand footwear manufacturers. You and I know of the big brand names.
Yeah, Metro, whatever.
A Bata,
Liberty, Metro.
Liberty, Relaxo, Metro,
Yeah.
But there's a huge long tail. And these people are unable to get their product into very many outlets. And they don't have their own sales and distribution team often. They rely on distributors to pick up stock. And they can double or triple their sales over 5-6 years if they get into the right outlets. So there is a market here waiting to be made, where it's a B2B supply chain from the factory to retail outlets. And they began to work at it slowly. Now, when we met them, it was a brave call for us to make that investment. It was very early. So we put a small sum of money and they delivered. We put more money, they delivered. Slowly we did it. Right? And that's how we sort of figured, and they figured that, listen, there's something here. Right? We've done a number of other companies like that, and some of them are succeeding. Okay, but they're looking at, is there a traditional way of doing business which perhaps we can modify slightly? See, if you modify too much, it takes years and lots of money to get customers to change. What did Naukri do? We took jobs from newspapers and we aggregated in one place, and traffic came. When traffic came, we told companies, you are spending 10 lakh rupees on recruitment ads, give us 10,000. We just dipped into an existing budget. We didn't ask them to change too much. Sir, wo bhi kariye, lekin ye bhi kariye. So you can sort of figure out what traditional methods could change and create value for all players, right? And find opportunities. That's one way, right? But ultimately, you are still, you have to have knowledge. You have to have deep knowledge of that customer, that space, for you to spot an opportunity.
The next question I want to ask you, and Naukri is one of the few listed tech companies in India, and listing obviously is a different part of your journey. Now, the US has a ton of listed tech companies. It's got NASDAQ, as a sort of tech-focused exchange largely. India doesn't have a large amount of listed tech companies. What do you think the reason for this has been? You guys have done the journey as a listed.
So look, one is companies in corporate India cannot list overseas without listing in India first.
Yeah.
You got to list in India. Second is this whole business of a loss-making company.
Can't list.
How can it list? Yeah. Right. Third is, even if a loss-making company could list, would the IPO succeed? Because would investors have confidence in a loss-making company? Right? And which could make losses for I don't know how many more years going forward. Right? And with truckloads of private capital coming in and not caring about making profits, about the companies making profits in a hurry, right? So companies are not incentivized to make a profit. Companies, if they're competing with somebody else with deep pockets who's competing with them on price or big advertising budgets, will willingly be forced to emulate those practices. And therefore they won't make a profit. And if you can't make a profit, can you list in India is the question.
And the question that India...
However, it's changing.
Do you think it's changing?
It is changing. It is changing. I think you will see a number of IPOs, listed companies, Indian companies or companies doing business in India or founded by Indian companies going listing either in India or overseas through the SPAC route.
And the one thing that because Indian investors today, and we see this in our side of the business, are rushing to put in money in US technology companies. They're fascinated by Google and Amazon and Tesla, etc. And yet they see all these technology startups in their own country and they don't see the investment opportunity. So I think if you think...
I think Indian investors investing in US listed companies. So listed companies are very different from unlisted companies. There are very few investors who do both. Very few. And there are even fewer who will do early stage private and then public. I can understand growth stage, I can understand late stage and public together. But early stage and then public, both with the same investor is rare.
The one follow-up question I have for this is, and I'm now talking in the context of more listed companies, is that, in the last year or so, listed companies in the tech space have created tremendous wealth for investors. And this is largely global. Do you see that as a trend going forward, or is the shelf life of tech companies small? And I'm not just talking about an Amazon and 4 or 5 FANG names, but I'm talking about technology as a broader space.
See, entrepreneurship is Darwinian. Many try, few succeed. And even if you succeed, how long will you succeed for? Markets change, technologies get obsolete, companies get competed out. There is a certain logic of large capital. And the logic is that large capital will lead and push and nudge companies to consolidate. Right? Less so in India because it's slightly harder to acquire companies in India. But if you look at US markets, there's a lot of M&A happening all the time. Right? And therefore, companies are born. Sometimes they die. Sometimes they get acquired. Sometimes they acquire. And in the US, it's a lot more dynamic than India as far as M&A activity is concerned. So will tech companies succeed? Some of them will certainly succeed. At the end of the day, just remember that HCL and Infosys were startups in 1980. They're giants today. Now, if you take IT services and you've got HCL, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, Cognizant. Cognizant, I'm counting as an Indian company, although it's not domiciled in India. If you leave out these 5 and then Tech Mahindra, you leave out these 6, are there other Indian giant IT services companies? I mean, maybe there are, but I can't think of any. There are some mid-size, right? But I'm pretty sure there are, everybody who started, and there were thousands who started, would have had the ambitions of being very large. So look, not everybody makes it. That's a rule of life. It's Darwinian. Okay, and some will make it, some will not.
What are the qualities of the guys that become the Microsoft and Google and the Infosys versus the ones who die, Sanjeev, in this industry?
I think persistence, hard work, quality of management, innovation, customer focus, those are the things. And yes, access to capital.
Access to capital.
Also.
I have a question in the Indian context. I think, as you see the ecosystem today, and I know you've said we don't need to become a Silicon Valley, but question one is...
No, I'm not saying we don't need to become, but if we don't need to become, also, I don't think we can become in a hurry.
What do you think policy needs to do to make our ecosystem better? So do you think our ecosystem is innovative in technology, and what more do you think can be done?
See,
what should we become?
I'll tell you. Let's just first start with a basic thing. The size of the market, the size of the domestic market. You have the US, then you have China, and then you have India. So the size of our market, the size of our economy is a fraction of China's, and an even smaller fraction of the US. What this means is that India's #1 company will be definitely of a smaller size than America's #1 company. And with size comes market cap and valuation. And therefore the market caps will be lower. Right? Which basically means that if you're investing at an early stage in a private company, the potential market cap at the end is much higher in the US than it is in India. Which basically means that in the US, there'll be more capital making larger bets in early stage companies. Which means that you have more early stage companies, more capital backing them, more investors. And because the markets are so large, you will find more efforts, more investment into real deep technology and R&D. Because the markets are large enough to support that, because eventually you can sell that much more of the final product. Right? So finally, it boils down to size of our economy and size of our market. We are innovating a lot more than we were 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, we were innovating a lot more than we were 20 years ago. We made progress. But at any point in time right now, we are still not innovating the way China is or the way the US is, simply because our markets are smaller.
So, I want to ask you one last...
And I don't know how many financial investors will invest behind an early stage company doing real R&D.
Do you think so?
Because real R&D is risky. It can fail. You can try for 10 years and not succeed.
Speaking of failure, since you mentioned that, I think the last question I wanted to ask you, and if the audience has any questions, I'd be happy to take one or two. So please post them. But you talked about failure. I think your industry is one that sees a lot of failure. How do you and COVID's been a tough time for people, right? It's been a time when you've seen sort of economic stress, job losses, business shutdown, etc. How have you sort of personally dealt with failure, and what would you tell people going through this sort of extraordinary period?
Look, between 1990 and maybe 2004-5, we saw many failures. Okay. However, we were frugal and we kept our costs low. So when something does not succeed, if your costs are low, then no matter what small revenue you get, we were always making a profit. So in the first 10 years, survival was success. So if you kept your costs low and you were frugal, right, you weren't failing. Right? And if you survive, right, and live to see another day, then you can be around to do stuff which, might help you succeed. Okay. So I would say be frugal. don't build up cost structures which you cannot get out of should there be a downturn. I think COVID proved that. I think 2015 wobble proved that. I think the global financial crisis in 2008 proved that. I think the meltdown in 2000 proved that. So look, I've been an entrepreneur since 1990. This is my 6th or 7th or, down cycle. And each down cycle is different, has a different texture and different causes. But a few learnings stay the same, right? Which is be careful on your costs. If you are costs that are discretionary, which is you can cut marketing easily.
Yeah.
But sacking half your workforce is really painful, and as an entrepreneur, it's mentally traumatic.
It is.
So we, for example, have never sacked people, but we have the luxury of doing that because we were careful about our costs in the first place, right? So look, Naukri pre-COVID was a 60% EBITDA margin business. Negative working capital, money in advance.
Yeah.
We were able to do that because we built a great product. And we built a great product because of customer insight. And then hard work after that. Okay? And it is this quality of Naukri that enabled us in April 2020, when COVID hit and lockdown happened, to stress test our cash flows and balance sheets. And we were minus 44% YOY growth in Q1 on Naukri billing. Minus 44%. And still we were profitable, and still we said it's okay. And we didn't sack anybody. We didn't cut any salaries. We simply deferred increments and deferred bonuses. And put a hiring freeze. And we came through it. But it is the foundation laid over the previous 20 years or 23 years in building Naukri and continuously improving it that enabled us to do this. Right? Now, if we didn't have a choice, would we have downsized? Of course we would have.
You would have had to.
But we had a choice. And we had a choice because we worked hard, everybody worked hard, the whole company worked hard the previous 23 years to build the kind of offering that Naukri is today.
And you give out a very good lesson for money management, actually, which is one, accumulate savings. It's important to have savings and keep costs low in life also. And
yeah, so we have so much cash in the balance sheet. Every investor would say, hey, what are you doing? What's your capital allocation? What's your ROCE?
Exactly.
So I said, look, it's okay. We are saving it for rainy day. Ab, could not anticipate COVID. But jab rainy day aaya, in a totally, from the left field, everybody was blindsided, right? We were okay.
And the second thing you also mentioned, which has a great lesson for investing, is keep some conservative assets in your portfolio in the investing context, because you never know when cycles come.
Yeah, so listen, so here's the other thing. People say entrepreneurs are risk takers. I don't believe that. Entrepreneurs are risk averse. I must be the most risk averse person I met in my life. I'm really scared. However, see, entrepreneurs have different goals from other people. Now, that goal, the path to that goal may intrinsically be more risky than the path to that goal. But even so, the entrepreneur will take the least risky path to his goal.
So even the entrepreneur is focused on risk-adjusted returns in life.
So I would say sensible, good entrepreneurs. Yeah, risk-adjusted return, कोई math तो नहीं था मेरे दिमाग में when we launched Naukri. We simply were looking at a customer and saying, customer wants this, let's do it. See what happens. We ended up here, bit by bit, step by step. But if you had asked me when you launched Naukri, 23 years ago, where do you think you'll be? I had no clue.
Of course.
Okay. We were doing a small company. We had no idea to become a big company. We had no ambition of making it a big company. We were simply saying, I want to run a small profitable business and, hopefully make a living. Right? It became big. So which brings me to my last point, which is that the best kept secret of most successful entrepreneurs is persistence. You keep at it, eventually kuch na kuch ho jayega.
Lage raho.
Right? And the difference between a good entrepreneur and a great entrepreneur is not how he spots opportunity, he or she spots opportunity. It's about how he or she manages risk. Because if you spot an opportunity, you can succeed for 5 years.
Yeah.
But if you spot an opportunity and manage risk,
Well,
then you'll succeed for 50 years.
That's a beautiful insight, beautiful one. Okay, before I let you go, Sanjeev, and you'll kill me for this, we usually have a rapid fire. I'm not going to send you a hamper. Maybe I'll send you a painting. It's called, because it's Friday evening, it's called Rum with Radhika. I don't have coffee like Coffee with Karan, so we'll do Rum with Radhika. So I hope the questions will be fun, and I hope the answers will be rapid and they'll have lots of fire.
I'm getting nervous, huh?
Don't get nervous. I'm nicer than Karan Johar. So I'll just start. So one company that you admire, could be tech or otherwise, globally and in India.
Globally, Apple, Google, Amazon, right? India, I think for CorpGov, people who have inspired us in the earlier generations, the Tata Group, Infosys.
One piece of advice to the following people, to a young entrepreneur out of IIT today.
Focus on the customer. Don't build a product in a lab. Go out and sell. So can I just elaborate on this one?
Go ahead.
So look, I was on a panel with Sanjeev Agarwal of Helion. And we often get asked this question by young students or youngsters who are starting out in their careers. So I want to be an entrepreneur. What should I do in my first job? And Sanjeev Agarwal gave a very, very profound and insightful answer. He said, listen, if you want to be an entrepreneur, in your first job, you should either be making something or selling something.
Nice.
Okay. Because you see, people join investment banking, people join consulting, and they say, they'll give me an overview of many industries and I'll spot opportunities. No, you have to know how to execute. Right? And execution is learned best by either making something or selling something.
Lovely. Lovely. One piece of advice to your 25-year-old self.
Be a little more brave and less conservative. I would take very, very tiny risks. I was afraid of failing.
One space.
But maybe that's why we are here, because maybe I would have, I don't know, but this is what I say in hindsight.
Hindsight is always 20/20. One space that is ripe for disruption in India.
Oh boy. Okay, I would say real estate. I would say hospitality. But there are people addressing this. Is what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying it's a wide open opportunity, but I think there'll be a lot of disruption in both real estate. There'll be a lot of disruption in hospitality.
God, I hope someone like you. My experience with builders notwithstanding, I really hope someone disrupts real estate. Okay, your few word comment on the following sort of trends, fintech companies in India.
Early days, people are groping around. Very few people have got and I don't have a great understanding of the whole landscape. Right? Ultimately, government regulation aayega. Okay, because ultimately, if you are running a neo bank or a quasi bank, but calling everybody's fintech, sooner or later somebody's going to wake up and say, hey, it's a bank. Right? And I see countries waking up to cryptocurrency and introducing regulation and possibly even banning cryptocurrency. Because see, cryptocurrency, so essentially you are almost challenging the sovereign state.
Yeah.
Here is a currency that is not backed by any central bank, not backed by any country. It's a medium of exchange. Sooner or later, countries will feel threatened by it and they will take action.
In fact, my next question was going to be on crypto. So you answered that. Okay. Next question.
Look, this is what I'm reading. I mean, I'm anticipating. I'm not sure.
Okay. Bootstrapped or funded, the way you would build again.
So look, जब पैसे मिलते हैं, it's very tempting to take them. Bootstrapping is a great discipline. Right? Bootstrapping is great, but if competition is funded, then you have a problem. So I'd rather bootstrap But it's very tempting to take money when it's available. But I would not spend time chasing investors. So what I tell youngsters is that the customer's money is better than the investor's money. If you're getting a customer's money and you're getting it repeatedly, and you're getting it at a price higher than the cost, then you have viable business, so long as you get enough customers.
So investor का मिल जाएगा कभी ना कभी.
And investor आ जाएगा अगर आपके पास customer का पैसा. Investors love to invest in companies that are getting customer money. But if you get the investor's money first, it's your PowerPoint that's impressing two people across the table. It does not mean your company will succeed. It does not mean that you will get customer money. Your company will succeed when you get customer money. So bootstrap.
As a VC, two questions. Or someone who's invested in companies, one investment that you made that you're very proud of, any company, and one investment that you regret missing out on.
Oh, so listen. So let me start with the second part. See, companies I said no to. I said no to Flipkart and pre-series A without even meeting them. Okay. I said no to Ola in pre-series A after meeting Bhavish.
Okay.
I said no to Snapdeal at 28 million twice. I said no to Taxi for Sure pre-series A. Okay. I said no to a bunch of companies which went on to become valuable. Okay. And the reason why we said no is I said I can't figure out how they will make money and become profitable. Now that we came to the right answer to that question in these companies. However, we might have made a lot of money had we invested. And now I'm looking at these companies and some of them are beginning to make a lot of money. I think, I don't want to name it. I mean, I've got information. I've got intelligence that tells me that some of them are making a lot of money. They're getting profitable. And COVID has done that.
And COVID has done that.
Okay. So lesson for me, I will still not change my prism because I will invest the way I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not the ones you miss that count. It's the ones you do that count. Okay. And so if those are okay, you're okay. So if Zomato is okay, we are okay. If Policy is okay, we are okay. If business is okay, if Shopkirana is okay, if all those if DotPay is okay, if all those companies are okay, we are fine. So focus on the ones that you've done and no regrets on the ones that you missed.
And thank you for being so candid with the ones that you missed. I think it's incredibly humble of you to be so candid on the ones that you've missed. My last question to you, Sanjeev, is that if I made you the Prime Minister of India for a day and there was one thing you could do for the sort of tech and startup ecosystem, what would that be?
Not just for the tech and startup ecosystem. I think India is, I would deregulate. I would, so what I would do is actually I'd set up a help desk. Okay. Any business that is facing any problem with any government interaction or rule, call up, log in, register what problem are you facing. Now, if you just have, say, 1 million businesses in a year giving 10 million pieces of feedback, the government will know what the problems are. And then the ones that make sense, and many of them make sense, just change those rules, drop those rules, whatever. So the kind of growth and entrepreneurial energy that you will unleash by simplifying, just keep simplifying.
It'll help the government get close to their customers and understand the customers.
It will increase tax revenue. It will give growth. Yeah. It will increase employment. It doesn't cost money. It doesn't increase the fiscal deficit.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I really hope someone is listening to you and does that. Sanjeev, thank you so much for being so incredibly candid with us, sharing a lot of insights in this conversation. And I think the last point was a beautiful one to take away. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time and thoughts.
Hey, thanks so much. Yeah. Thanks for calling me.
It was a delight to have you. Thank you for valuing my painting as Hussein on Zoom. I'll relabel that. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in on this edition of Edelweiss Connect. We look forward to seeing you next time. Just a surprise announcement. Our next event is on April 7th, and we have a much in demand guest. That's Professor Sanjeev Bikhchandani. Again, someone who doesn't need an introduction, and we're really looking forward to hearing him. So hope all of you who tuned in today also tune in for that session. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.